like the guy was. Go ahead.
I will say
Go
hello,
ahead.
hello,
Go ahead,
hello, and
Mike.
welcome. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Last Stop Cafe, which is broadcast on enlightenradio.org with your host and original Dusty Footed philosopher, my friend, Mr. John Case, and our like lovely, wonderful, terrific sidekick, Mr. James Boyd. Ladies and
Hey,
gentlemen, is in the house.
yeah.
And today, you are lucky, you are fortunate, you are here on Hat Day. It is a few days before the new year. We're a little pumped up. We're talking a little bit of sports. We're talking a little bit of comedy. Then we're going to get into some economy that John and James know a lot more about than this knucklehead here telling you everything that's going on. All right. Now, what I want to say
All
is
right. Amen.
congratulations to
Yes.
the
Got me
Washington
running.
Commanders who pulled it off once again last night in overtime. Jaden Daniels is a mystery and enigma. You can't stop
Jim.
him. You can only hope to contain. The man is phenomenal. He's got ice in his veins. The Iceman cometh. He scores in overtime to send the Atlanta Falcons home and to advance the Washington Commanders into the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. So that was
Holy
really
shit.
good. It was real good.
Yes, that's all I can say too, John. Holy
You know,
shit.
it
Amazing
looks like they
football.
got Howard
Yeah,
Cosell on the radio
I
today. I mean,
know,
am I
man.
wrong? I
Yeah,
mean,
how
I
you doing?
thought he.
Hey, it's a good way to bring in the new year.
Yeah,
I tell
yeah, I
you.
was dipping in and out. I was doing a little
Yes, sir.
Howard in there. There was a little. You
Mm-hmm.
can only
Mm-hmm.
hope to. Yeah, that's kind of. I think it's unforgivable that he cannot learn to discipline himself.
All right, Mike, you
so,
nailed it, man.
so we had that. We had just a tremendous. I mean, once again, this young man who's playing for the Washington Commanders, the quarterback, is a very special young man. They don't come around often like that. I mean, he is the same. He is the same. If you watch him, I mean, one of the plays, he was going into overtime, and he's looking over at his coach, and his coach is like, rah, 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 rah. And James is like, okay, all right, coach, all right, I'm the ball and score.
Animate that. Radio listeners, really, really good job, Mike. Hey,
They
my
did.
Giants won.
Oh yeah, they
You
did. Yeah,
know,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it just sends my psyche into a frenzy, man. I'm thinking, wow, did I just wake up from this really bad nightmare and the
Oh,
season has just
oh.
started? Dang,
Y'all should have
what
never
was
let
that?
Saquon out the door, man. You shouldn't have let him out the door. He went to Philly, and now he's killing everybody. Got the man just got 2,000 yards.
But we got to wait till next year.
I know, but let me tell you something. Saquon only has 101 yards. It's a big
Oh yeah.
question as to whether the coach is going to play him. He does not need to play the last game. They don't even. They can play all their like second and third
Nah,
stringers.
they
Will they
save him. Yeah,
play
save
Saquon
him.
so he can break Eric Dickerson, the goat's record?
Hmm.
Will they play him so he can get those 102 yards and say, okay, now I'm the GOAT? And look, I don't think it matters because we're talking about one of the best running backs I've ever seen. I've never seen anyone with that kind of strength and burst right off the ball. As soon as they hand that young man the ball, he's gone. I mean, he is, and he's running down the field looking for people to hit.
Hmm.
Some of those defensive backs are like, nope, I've done this before. I am not bouncing off that man again.
Hmm.
So I
That used
say,
to happen with Jimmy Brown.
Saquon, good job. You're in the
Yeah,
NFC.
yeah. He run over top of everybody. Jim Brown.
I don't think anybody's going to beat Philly. Uh,
Hmm.
I think Philly is probably on its way to the NFC Championship game. Now, is anybody's guess whether if the Rams continue to do what the Rams are doing? Look out for them. But everybody's forgetting about Detroit, and Detroit is going to be getting some healthy people back, some much needed help on defense and offense. And that coach over there, Dan Campbell, he don't play.
Hmm.
He's a good football coach, and his offensive coordinator Ben Johnson is something else. A really creative football team. They got to play tonight. They're going to San Francisco. They can really win out and do
Hmm.
exceptionally
Hmm.
well. We'll see what happens.
Hmm.
Buffalo Bills are playing well. Not great, but okay. And they always have Josh Allen. And of course, you
Hmm.
cannot forget Lamar Jackson
Hmm.
and the Baltimore
Hmm.
Ravens.
Hmm.
I mean, the
Hmm.
Ravens are just Lamar just does Lamar things. You know,
Hmm.
He's a little bit like Jaden, but he's got a lot more experience in terms of being in the pocket. So in my opinion, I think Lamar probably once again deserves the MVP, and this is the unprecedented because he'd win the MVP 3 times. No one's ever won it 3 times.
Hey, Mike, give me a shout out for the top 5 NFL coaches or lineup, 1 to 5.
Okay.
What's your thing?
I would say of all time.
Yeah, no, right now.
Right now, I say Andy Reid. And I've got to go with that coach in Minnesota. I mean, they threw Darno on the stack and said, "You ain't no good no more. Get out of here."
Which coach is that?
What he's doing? He's tearing the league up. He's like the number 1 passer. He's the number 2 passer in the NFL. I mean, completion percentage, every category you could possibly imagine. Sam Darno has resurrected his career in Minnesota, and no one thought he would do that. And Kirk Cousins signed a big fat contract with the Atlanta Falcons to sit his ass on the bench.
So that's your top pick, Andy Reid.
That right there, those 2. But I got to give, honestly, the coach of the Rams some love too. His name escapes me. I love that guy, coach of the Bills. Excellent football. I mean, you've got a lot of really good, talented coaches out there. I don't know if Mike McCarthy is going to be back for Dallas next year. I don't think he will. I think Jerry Jones will fire his ass.
Yeah, Andy Reid is one of the most successful coaches in the National Football League.
Both with Philly, and then Philly ran him out of town, and he was fine with that because he went to Kansas City and set up a dynasty. You know, he really did. I mean, he saw what a lot of people weren't able to see in Patrick Mahomes.
So I gotta do my responsibility. I'm gonna ask you about Mike Tomlin. That's my G-ma for
you know why I didn't mention him is because he's in a whole different category. That guy, all he does is win. That's what he does, man. He convinces his team that this week is the way we're going to play this playbook. Now, they had a rough game here recently, but that's just one game. I mean, he still has won he's the longest tenured head coach. Keep this in mind for folks out there. Just keep this in mind. When you think about how many different coaches go through the carousel, let's keep this in mind. And I'm glad James brought this up. There's something to be said about legacy and endurance in the coaching world. And I will tell you, Mike Tomlin has all those things. Mike Tomlin is probably right in there in the top 3, James, or even like number 2 or occasionally number 1. He's just a sharp guy. He keeps his players on message. You don't see a lot of bullshit with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You just don't. And they play exceptionally well. They're going to be a scary team in the playoffs. I'm telling you that right now. They match up really well against Kansas City, so Andy Reid better look out. I'm just saying. Because Tomlin is – if you look at Tomlin's face on the sidelines every weekend, he's just so stoic. He's like, ready to attack.
Stoicism. Yeah, I like that. Okay.
But he's a good man. He's a good man. And think, again, the Pittsburgh Steelers had who? They had Chuck Noll. Okay? For how many years? Forever. And then he left. Who came in? The Chin. Bill Cowher, the Chin. They called him the Chin. When Bill Cowher left. Who's there now? Mike Tomlin. That's 3 coaches in 50 years. 3. Think about that for a second. How many coaches in that same time span were hired and fired by the Washington football team?
Oh, man. That's a good question for another
I think
show.
you're probably close to 30.
Research on that one.
Yeah, I think you're close to 25, 30.
Turnovers.
Going out. Coming in, going out.
Okay. Man.
Well,
Thank
you know,
for
it's
that.
a very political town. So, you know,
It is.
I mean, you know, all it takes is some senator to call into the club and say, "What the hell was that? You know, you just embarrassed us in front of the whole world."
Well,
you know,
I will say this. I will say this about the new ownership. Josh Harris, God bless you. I mean, he's out there in the stands. He's out there. The owner of the team is out there tailgating. You never see Snyder do that shit. Josh is walking around going, "Yeah, hail to the Commanders, yeah." And he's like high-fiving people and wandering, and people are cheering for him. We haven't had an owner cheered for since Jack Cook. Do you remember Jack Cook? He would talk like this. Oh,
Now,
what Ted Rudd?
if you talk,
Super.
What's his
if
name,
you
Mike?
talk, come on, man. If you talk this guy up, some millionaire who bought the team, okay, next
Oh,
thing you're going to have is
multi-millionaire, right?
Elon Musk is going to go out and buy himself 2 teams. Okay,
Yes,
so he just,
yes.
Wow.
Nah, see, John, there's a group of owners that have to vote as to whether you are allowed to buy a team. And I do not think they want Elon Musk anywhere near professional football. They don't give a shit about his money. They got enough of that.
but look, let me just remind you of the story of our good friend and co-host on this station, J.B. Christensen, who who said who said, "Oh, Elon Musk has turned into the devil, and I'm going to go out and turn my rotten Tesla in, and get something different." And he heads down there with his limping Tesla, which he did have some problems with.
Oh, he
Right.
And guess what happens? They make
What?
him an offer he can't refuse. He
Which
comes
is
home with a brand new Tesla.
Oh, for God's sake,
Elon Musk. So what Mike just shared with us about the people are never going to have it.
Yeah.
This
I
guy
don't
seems to be
know.
able to figure. He
There's
seems to
too
figure
much
it out,
history online with that
and
motherfucker.
and all of his ideology seems to be centered around uh, domain specific.
I don't
He
disagree
he
with
he
that,
he
James.
he,
That's a really
he,
good point because I also
he
think he doesn't really have any ideology for real. I think his ideology is profit. It's just
is
all profit.
profit driven.
Everything else is
It's domain. It's specific.
mm,
Specificity makes those conveyor belts work.
yeah.
I think it would be, however, now,
Well,
well,
I
wait
mean,
a
the
minute.
reality
Whoa.
is,
Makes those trucks and stuff
Nah,
move the
yeah,
right way.
the reality is,
It,
engineering wise,
it,
he didn't design
it,
any of that
he,
shit. None of it.
I don't think
he
it's,
seems to be. What about the unionizing of that, my friend John?
well, he's against it, but I think you're missing, I think it's, I think it's a mistake to miss the South African origins of this guy's
Mm.
outlook,
Mm, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's because there's a certain arrogance, to his
Apartheid.
thing, and apartheid.
Mm,
He was born into it. His father
Apartheid.
was a white South African Afrikaner,
yeah.
and
General.
And
General.
he was also controlling about 15 different mines. His father.
yeah, right. I
Specificity.
mean, so just
Specific.
Yeah.
and so the guy's got. So I think that. And some of these other guys that went over to Trump, early, like Peter Thiel, right? The guy that runs PayPal, and I mean, I think he also has some South African roots. Okay, and it's I'm not sure it's an accident, And
John,
What?
that's a really good point. That is an
yeah.
excellent point, John, and I thank you for making it, man. That
So
actually.
what makes that ideology, and is it isolated? What makes that ideology so pot rich when it comes along and it
Mm,
inserts itself into a population of thinkers and doers and people that's got access already?
Well,
What happens to that?
you're born into a
Right.
belief. You're born into a belief,
It
that the
comes with
world, the
money.
world,
It
the
comes
world
with money.
well,
has a
I think
sharp
James is right. It
class
comes with that
structure.
that
It comes with
certain
money.
entitlement that they're raised to
Consequential.
feel. Okay, you carry the torch and expand it and crush everyone in your path. That kind of
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of winner
Like the
takes
road to
all.
Ruler, man.
Well,
It
I mean,
is that.
keep in mind the
Not
apartheid
road to
system.
Ruler, but
Hold on,
what's that?
the apartheid system defended itself as if it was a state of nature, right?
Oh
There was
yeah,
a
yeah. Oh
natural
my God,
ruling
that was
class,
yeah.
and then there's these lesser races and peoples, that are assigned different positions in the
Oh yeah,
cosmos. And I mean, you're raised, and that regime lasted what, from the early 1800s until
yeah.
10 years ago, right? You got
Right.
200 years of history with a very rigid class, racial, weirdo structure. imposed on the whole population. And then it blows up and there's a revolution, and then how do you put it back together? Well, you don't put people like Musk back together. I mean, he's
No, I don't. And there's a argument within the MAGA community big time, and they're going after each other over this about immigration, about key immigration hires, talented people, and Musk is on the side of the immigrant because he's an immigrant, and he's shutting everybody else down. This consultant Laura Loomer, who I have a hard time saying that without puking, is going after Musk, and he's going after her, and they both support the orange shit stain. So I can't. I just sit back and go, eat my popcorn and going, wow, this is a great show. This is.
Well, really, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's just a lot of drama. And sometimes I think they're brilliant at generating drama they want you to pay attention to, so you can't see what it is they're actually doing.
Well, let me switch the subject a little bit because we'll all have to pick up a drink or smoke or something if we keep talking about Trump and his friends.
Too early for bourbon, John. Too early.
But as I introduced a little earlier, there's a whole bunch of economic studies about what causes crime, and of course, a closely related issue, addiction, because it drives so many people into the prison system.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I had this correspondence with a guy that runs a pretty good economist, Tim Taylor, and I mean, Carol says he's good, and she got a good opinion about these things, really, since she's a pro editor. So
much smarter than you.
Yeah, so much. But anyway, here's the thing. He says to me, all the studies that are coming out on crime are focusing on administrative aspects. How many police are there? How few? What was their training? Did they have enough social workers? I mean, these questions that we've all seen in the press. And I had asked him, well, what about the poverty, since there's a big correlation, right? And he says, yeah, there is a big correlation, but there's a problem with the studies that have been attempted. And that is that some communities who are very poor have zero reported crime, zero. And some don't, and many don't, okay? And he says, so the problem is if you have a randomized sample of poor people, right? You don't pay any attention, you try to make it as random as possible, okay? Because you're trying to isolate poverty from all kinds of other things that are going on, right? And he says when you do that, you don't get a consistent result. And it's because, and here's an example, he said, you have a lot of communities in Southern California and Southwest in general, where they are either predominantly or very largely immigrant families. And in that immigrant family, you have a certain percentage, 10, 15, sometimes 30, that are undocumented. Yep. And the community, if it happens like a lot of these did, where a bunch of people come up from a certain province in Mexico or Central America, right? And then they bring their relations and friends up behind them, if they are managed to establish themselves in the United States and get a job or something like that, or even get halfway to citizenship or get to citizenship. And then these communities, though, because they have a number of illegal people in them, as long as they're coherent and they have leadership, right, and some either family, community, or other kind of solidarity, right, then they police themselves and they don't report crimes. And they come up with zero, and they maintain a certain. And he says that skews the ability. He claims, he's a good guy. I don't know whether it's totally true. He claims that that's why these academics don't pursue answering the question, did poverty cause it? Because when they can take a much more narrow question as an academic and have the math come out, oh, well, I understand now why I have a study asking why people pick up pennies off the street.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I can nail that. But somehow I can't nail that poverty is causing crime.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Isn't that weird? Do you go? I mean, it's weird, right? And then he says to me, he says, but everybody knows that if you were to make people poorer, it certainly would not reduce crime.
No, no,
Right.
it doesn't. Because you're
Well,
creating
you
a
know
more
what?
desperation.
I think one of the things that I get out of that, John, for me, anyway, is when I couldn't see a way to not be poor, then I committed crimes, abundance of crimes. But when I saw a way to not be totally abjectly just impoverished, then my criminogenic needs decreased. I didn't have, those needs. So yeah, John, I agree. Yeah, it's weird, and it's also, it's objectionable. It's a lot of things, but I think it's noteworthy for sure. And it deserves figuring out, I mean, because like, I don't know, all the science says that the uh, co-regulation is a biological imperative if we are to exist upon this earth as humans. Then we need one another. We need to interact in positive different ways. But like you said, John, all these other factors factor themselves in while you're trying to do X, Y. Z is over in the corner making mischief.
Gotta keep my eye on that Z, man. Keep my eye on
And
him.
so, and what happens is it's like the whale. He's going along in the sea, and then once he looks in his underside, in his belly, you got all these hitch along places like,
Parasitic
freedom, yeah,
relationship, man.
freedom is going along, and then you got all these pockets of hidden discrepancies and people that these pockets. If you take the country as a whole, the whale, and then you siphon off that whole anatomy, and you make it just one thing, and then you start adding places like West Virginia, South Carolina, Detroit.
Mississippi,
They're hitching a ride. They're hitching a
Louisiana.
ride, and then they're able to create these titties.
Yeah,
If you look at the
Right.
whale, yeah, they're
yeah,
riding along and they create a problem,
yeah.
And so then the whale kind of succumbs to that eventually because he gets
Oh
caught.
yeah, because there's too many parasites now.
It's too many
The
parasites.
whale
Good
can't
word.
operate.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah,
It's
parasitic.
parasitic. Now, how, does that make any sense? We have to get people in to write about this stuff, and then we read about it, and then we look at it, and what is it that we can put beside what it is that we've discovered to actually verify what it is that we're seeing and thinking.
Well,
And because this country has moved along so far that sometimes, like with AI, you can't believe your lying eyes.
no, you can't. Right. Well,
That's
let me tell
becoming
it.
The
true.
one young lady, influencer,
Let me give you a
some positive girl who did some positive things for some positive products. They stole her whole image and produced a commercial that was complete fiction and bullshit.
yeah, right.
And
You
she's
talking
looking
about
at
Taylor
it going,
Swift?
I didn't say those things.
Now, you see,
You talk,
we didn't take Star Trek seriously when they first started off with that, or
no.
or the Jetsons, for that matter.
Yep.
The Jetsons, and
Yes,
oh,
boy, all
yeah.
right.
Well,
Well,
let me
somehow the Flintstones, they had them to where we was cool with them,
Yeah.
but they had some upgrades. I
hold
don't
on.
know.
Hold on. I want to give another example just from a family wedding I went to. Okay, in which my niece was marrying an Indian man,
Uh-huh.
and his family from a rural area somewhere in northern India came over to attend the wedding. About 8 of them, and they were the father, the mother. The father spoke almost no English. Well, he was reported to speak almost no English. That wasn't actually true.
Isn't it amazing how a guy that can't speak in English understand everything you're saying?
Yeah, but anyway, so we're at this party, which has got a lot of Americans, okay, and then this Indian family, right, and so there's a line, up to I think one of the buffets, right, and we're all standing in line down, and there's quite a bit of youthful BS going on, okay, in the family and among the other people and the guests at the wedding. But somehow the father apparently thought it was getting a little too indecorous or something. Anyway, he lifted his finger like this. That entire family immediately became quiet and attentive. Immediately.
Oof, wow.
And it was a sign of obviously, you could interpret it that way, but as I got to know them a little bit later and also had some conversations with him and his
He
wife.
was the family leader.
He was, this was a sign of respect. And so I think about that, and I think about some of the families that I knew, that worked in the shops in Southern California that were mostly undocumented, except usually there was a leader in the shop, an elder, okay, who got them those jobs. And by the way, maintained the discipline in that shop. You will do this job and we will keep our word. Okay. If we make it to the company, we will keep our word because he's going to keep us here and keep us somewhat secure if we keep the deal. If he fucks us up, we'll fuck him up. Okay. But we have a deal. Okay. And we will live by it, right? There won't be any BS. Okay. And I've seen that happen. It makes for a very strong union, by the way, a local union. Okay. It really does. Because you have some smart, wise people who understand each other very well. And so I could see how that would lead to some communities maintaining enough solidarity so that no matter how poor they were, they could keep it the hell together.
Right. Oh, John, that's one thing I wanted to ask you. In your years as a negotiator and for the unions, there had to be some shops in some cases, and I know, but there had to be some where they were like, "Hey, we're good," because of Bob and Steve or whatever. Those two guys are really keeping it together, and they're helping us hold the line. And when one of us goes down or somebody's a little bit poor, we try to take care of them. We try to take care of them here, so we don't have it in our contained circle of work and friends. This is what we do. We take care of our people.
That's right.
I've seen that.
Don't leave anybody behind.
Thank God it's there.
Yeah. No.
I think that if all a body has to deal with in this country is poverty, I think we could make it. But then if you take that same analogy, John, with the guy who said, we're gonna do the job, and if he mess us up, we're gonna mess him up. But you take that same guy, take that same period of time, that same village of people, and you put some illegal substances in there that's like fentanyl or heroin back in the 60s or whatever. You put that in there. And so then you start to break down the skin of that whole fabric. And
yes, you
people,
do.
So we've lost. Yeah. So we go back to a lot of different podcasts, John, that you and I talked about, and we take a look at the things, right, that we can really, really take a look at by virtue of content. No matter how long it takes us to get to where we need to be able to see something that we saw once before, and you take that dynamic, right, which was come from another hardwiring, a country that had, the kids, when they came into the village, when they were born into something, that used to be here in the United States. back in
Mhm.
really, really struggling days when we didn't have all the distractions, and people started getting better at some point and then they get worse, but they wouldn't get as worse as they can get right now. But so they had to, the people with all the nefarious behaviors going on, all the criminogenics, we got to keep this thing going. They had to add something. So they went, for me, for my generation, it was heroin and other substances and the lifestyle, the poverty, the economic factors, the social environment, the family structures. And so when you start to officiate over the permeation, of that particular piece of hardwiring in a community by adding distractions, like how hard it is to get an education.
Right.
If you put, so you have to learn at some point to self-regulate, to self-discipline within the village. Now, you take the same guy that realizes at one point if he mess up, they're gonna mess him up. When you give him some heroin or something, that part about I'll F you up,
Yeah, yeah.
they don't say,
Yeah, I mean,
Stab myself.
right. You saw that
it is.
happening in that super in that
But I think also
what's
too, James. I think also too, and John. I think sometimes we disregard too much and too often the environmental factors.
environmental.
That also has an influence on a portion. Where are you going to put? In many cases, in our history as a country, whether it be legal or illegal, but there has been some manipulation in terms of locating certain structures, whether that be manufacturing or not. Generally, it's more manufacturing or a plant that has you have to blow smoke into the air, and some of them kind of skate the legality of that, and you're stuck right there in that neighborhood. What are you going to do? You don't have the representation that you need that these rich people have because they already own all the damn politicians. So they're making all the laws so they can put the shit in there where the poor people have to deal with it. And I think that's bullshit.
Mm. Hey, so John, switching gears, you're headed down to DC. Oh, you changed that?
No, I'm going to go down to January 18.
Oh,
There's going to be
January. Okay.
January 18 is going to be a mobilization here to.
Mhm.
I kind of picture that we should do instead of January 6th, just do it January 18th, the other way around, and
Mhm.
and see what happens. With he'll probably kill us all, but whatever. Um,
Nah,
anyway, I
might have
figure
some bumps and bruises, but
I don't
yeah,
know how
hey,
big
yeah.
it's going to be, but I understand that Reverend Now, among a
Mhm.
whole bunch of others, is organizing a rally for the January
So
18th
hold
in
on one second. Let me
D.C.
see what I'm doing on the 18th. Oh, look, I'm busy. Okay, I can't go.
I'm going to go down. I'm going to go down. I mean, my eyesight's
Mhm.
better now. I can make it all the way to Shady Grove in
Oh,
my
okay.
car.
Well, I got
You
to get
know.
the heck out of here, Johnny. I got to go. It's 1
Oh,
o'clock. I
oh,
got to
you
go.
got work. Oh, that's right. You got work to do, man. Okay,
Yes,
buddy.
sir. Yeah,
Yeah,
All
so,
right. Well,
somebody got to
listen.
gentlemen,
do
I
it.
want to thank you and anybody that
Some,
tuned into the Last Stop Cafe because this is, in fact, the last stop on the internet. You jump off this puppy, you're going into a hole you never want to go into. So
yeah, it's a
stop here,
sinkhole.
enjoy the show. You might learn something. On behalf
Hey,
of John Case,
that's
the
right. Have
original
a good
best
one,
morning
Mike.
philosopher and our great host, on behalf
Mhm.
of James Boyd, the essential add-on to our lovely show. We love you guys. Happy New Year. We'll talk to you next week. Take care of each other.
All
All
right.
right.
Keep it a fair game, folks. Okay. Every
Yeah,
day's gravy.
every day is gravy. Yeah, it ain't easy being peasy every time.
No, it's not. All right, buddy. Take it easy, man. Bye
All
bye.
right,
Thank you.
John.
Thank you.
Later.